Welcome to Movie Caps. Today I will show you an unusual couple dealing with their estranged marriage film from 2014 titled Gone Girl. Watch out and take care. July 5th, Nick sips his morning coffee tiredly and has a tough decision to make. Instead of grocery shopping, he makes the rational decision to have a few shots at the local bar. He's greeted like an Irish prince being baptized by a lovely bartender, Margot, his twin sister. It's his 5th wedding anniversary and he's drowning in memories of how he met his wife, Amy, and narrates that he'd love to crack her skull and pick apart her brain to answer the eternal question married couples have: what are you thinking? He reminisces the first time they met in New York and immediately fancied each other. At the time, Amy was writing personality quizzes for a magazine, and when she asked Nick what he did for a living, he was the man who would save her from all the awesomeness. He wrote for a men's magazine. They continued to talk, but Amy found it hard to believe he was not BSing her. She joked that his chin was quite villainous, to which he covered it up and implied that what he was saying was 100% true. Of course, they kissed on the way home. Nick just couldn't resist the sugar on her lips. On both of her lips. Nick's playfulness has long since faded. While playing the game of life with Margot, he tells her that Amy loves to puzzle him on their anniversary and that he expects one this year, too. What is the clue for this year? Nick receives a call from a neighbor telling him that his cat is outside. He returns home. The door is open and he calls for Amy. She does not answer. He goes into the living room and sees that a table is flipped over and the glass top is shattered on the floor. Nick yells Amy's name, which terrifies his neighbor. The cops arrive and Nick shows them around. He reveals that he and Margot own the bar. Coffee-addicted detective Rhonda pins yellow post-its to important stops in his house while accompanied by her partner James. Rhonda notices a blood splatter in an unusual spot in the kitchen and James gives Nick a look. The detective continues to look for clues as she stops by Amy's impressive gal. Nick is concerned. She knows and amazes Amy's books. In Nick's memory, he replays the night one of Amy's novels was published. She told him about her real-life moments that the book is based on. However, the character is living her best life realizing things which real Amy didn't. Amazing Amy, the character in the book, becomes a prodigy at playing the cello, plays volleyball on the varsity team, and gets a dog, unlike the real Amy, who quit playing the cello at age of 10, was cut from her freshman year, and didn't have a dog. At the police station, Nick is interrogated by Detective Rwanda, who explains the seriousness of the situation. Forensics team is sent to his house, Amy's phone and credit cards are tracked, and a press conference will be held tomorrow. Nick cracks a joke about being in a Law and Order episode. The detective gets a bad vibe from Nick because he doesn't really know much about Amy. All he knows is that she has high standards. Nick reminisces about the time he spent with Amy in the library. While Nick seems to have found a good book by Jane Austen, Amy suggests they have a horizontal refreshment at the next stop. Nick asked God to bless Jane Austen. The library visit was the reason for the second anniversary's clue, cotton. Amy gave him expensive Italian cotton sheets. Guess what Amy got? Italian cotton sheets. At Dunne's residence, Detective Rhonda meets Noelle. She introduces herself as Amy's best friend, who lives 5 doors down. Meanwhile, it took Horatio Kane all day to figure out that the splatter in the kitchen was definitely blood. But to be sure, a luminol sweep is ordered. Upstairs, James gets a very interesting fact that the house is rented in Amy's name. What a mystery. But wait, everything is in her name, including Nick's bar. Even Rhonda isn't impressed with James' cleverness. Under Amy's undies, the first clue is found. July 6th, Nick wakes up with a hangover and Margot advises him not to take a shower, so Rhonda and her team assume he was up all night worrying about his wife. Margot tries to give him advice on how to act throughout the day, however Nick lets her know that he will be just himself. They both arrive at the police station, where Amy's father greets Nick. The in-laws and twins are taking over the press conference. They've prepared a speech and Nick goes first. He's shy in front of the cameras but does his job and says 2 sentences and even puts on a smile at a request. At first it seems that Amy's father and his wife are more interested in finding their daughter and both say a little more than Nick, but that quickly changes when they use this as an opportunity to promote Amazing Amy's product. Amy's mother asks Nick if he knows about Desi, Amy's ex-boyfriend who was obsessed with her and attempted suicide after Amy broke up with him. A restraining order was filed afterwards. Rhonda becomes suspicious after finding out that Desi lives within a 2-hour drive. There's also a man named Tommy who was Amy's boyfriend 8 years ago in New York. She broke up with him after he got physical against her. Compared to Tommy, Nick seems like a nice guy after all. Rhonda asks Nick to stay longer and shows him the first clue they found in Amy's drawer. He explains to her that it is a treasure hunt for their anniversary that his wife is conducting. He looks at it and quickly unravels the thread, knowing where to go. In the tiny office at Nick's school, another clue has been left for him. Rhonda interrupts him reading the clue as she starts asking questions like his ex did in college after finding one of these. Same answer as in college. He manages to lie about where the next clue is hidden. Nick is at his father's house. Surprisingly, he forgot the code to deactivate the alarm system and almost accidentally orders a pizza when Rhonda interrupts him, having followed him. An awkward situation for Nick. He leads her out and she questions if this is the brown house mentioned in the second clue that Nick hid from her. Nope, it's still blue and waddles away. The third clue infuriates Nick when Amy tells him where she hid the fourth clue. It's where he keeps goodies for anniversary 5. Female dog. Nostalgia resurfaces of the time when their marriage was tested for weak spots. Amy recorded in her diary that it was a tough time when Nick lost his job and Amy was forced to lend money to her parents from her trust fund. Almost all of it. At that time, Nick was depressed and spent the money carelessly, which was hard for Amy. He wasn't used to being unemployed and that Amy didn't trust him and his intentions, but she kept motivating him as his wife that he would find a job. July 7th. The event is organized by Amy's parents. When Nick arrives, many take a hard look at him. Margot compliments him on looking like a piece of crap. Nick denies to Rhonda that Noelle is Amy's best friend and James makes it clear to Rhonda that he doesn't like Nick. Shauna introduces herself, feeling sorry for Nick and saying she can fix him with chicken Frito pie. It looks like she's at the wrong party when Nick asks her to delete a picture of them. This upsets Shauna and she leaves. Amy's mom is also pissed. She thinks Nick is having a good time, to which he replies that it's his nightmare. He's just trying to be nice to the people who volunteer to help find Amy. The search continues with a large number of volunteers. Margot's watching the TV when Nick shows up on the news. The report coincides with James and Amy's mom's opinion that Nick doesn't look like he's affected by his wife's absence, and Margot worries that Nick is hiding something from her. Nick is startled by the people's judgment and only wishes he could come to his sister's place and not be judged. In the past, Amy and Nick moved from New York to Missouri to save Nick's mother, diagnosed with cancer. Amy didn't mind, she just wanted to be asked. That's when she wished to disappear for the first time. When Margot goes to sleep, Nick gets a text message from Andy, who's one of his students and wants to get laid. Hope that's not her undies Rwanda was worried about. Naughty Nick. They have to be careful, but Nick still can't resist her. She will make inventorization in her red panty inventory to find out if those were hers in Nick's office. Nick is serious and makes sure she doesn't snitch their relationship to anyone, especially not during the investigation. Andy reveals that he planned to get a divorce, which Nick forbids to speak out loud again. Nick, you better be quick, as promised. After Amy got the impression that Nick is cheating on her, she asked whether they could have a baby to have a real purpose for her in Missouri. Nick saw that as the worst possible time and they had a fight. Nick couldn't control himself and pushed Amy to the ground. Amy became scared that he would hurt her even more. She realized how frightened she was of him. James and Rhonda ask a merchant for information about Amy. He actually knows her and reports that she desperately wanted a gun on Valentine's Day. Amy knew Nick wanted a divorce, but didn't ask for it because Amy was his money jar. She became paranoical and thought that she would sleep better with a gun. July 8th. Although Nick had promised to be fast, the lovebirds spent the night together at Margot's doing push-ups. He's only quick in the morning, throwing her out in seconds after waking up. Nick thought the job was done and Margot wouldn't find out, but guess who's mad behind his back? Of course she's mad about him lying. Margot is shocked that he is cheating on Amy with one of his students. Nick is offended. He reveals how terrible Amy made him feel all this time. Margot tells him that he's f***ed if anyone finds out his little secret. She shows him that he's all over the news and not in a good way. Oh, remember Shauna? They look cute together. At least defense attorney Tanner is on Nick's side and defends his unusual behavior. This lady from the news, Ellen, is testing Nick's patience, as every woman has in recent days. Margot suggests him to hire Tanner. Nick's back in his house. The housekeeper isn't getting paid, that's for sure. It's not hard to notice the visit of Horatio Kane and his team as well. He's taken a bite out of the range hood in the kitchen. While Nick enjoys his ice cream, one of Kane's team members has forgotten his way home and befriends the garbage man. James is surprised that Nick hasn't been arrested and challenges Rhonda. James doesn't believe in Nick's innocence, but for Rhonda there is insufficient evidence that Amy needed a gun to protect herself from Nick. As Rhonda says never talk to her like that, the results of the blood test come from sample taken from the kitchen. It's Amy's. James believes Ellen more than his partner Rhonda. In the evening, Nick prepares for another event to ask for help finding his missing wife. Nick says that he is innocent and loves Amy. Andy isn't happy. The crowd loves his speech when Noelle suddenly interrupts, doubting that he gave the police information about Amy's pregnancy. Andy, Margot, Amy's parents, everyone is shocked. Nick flees from the journalists and he hops into a police car. Rhonda is sick of Nick's BS. Photos prove that Amy and Noelle were friends, but Nick insists they don't prove Amy's pregnancy. Rhonda suspects the crime scene was staged. In a fight, the photo frames would have fallen down. The luminol test revealed a lot of blood in the kitchen. Rhonda suspects it was a homicide and the only thing missing is a body. Not good news for Nick, as Noelle tells that Nick's and Amy's marriage is crap. Rhonda accuses him of spending Amy's money. Shocked at the amount of his debts, Nick is convinced that his identity has been stolen. Also of interest to Rhonda seems to be the fact that Nick bumped Amy's insurance to $1.2 million back in April. Rhonda gets a call and receives information about Amy being pregnant. After the police leave, Margot comes in. Nick's on the phone with Andy, who's not in the best of moods. Margot must finally learn the truth. Nick tells her that he, too, is surprised by Amy's pregnancy and explains that it was Amy who didn't want children. Margot finds the third clue in Nick's hate box, which he can't solve. Margot is disappointed that Nick is still hiding something and leaves. James and Rhonda are back at Nick's father's house. The detective is eager to find a body to close the case. Meanwhile, Nick is trying to solve Amy's third clue. In the furnace, Rhonda discovers Amy's diary. Nick reveals the clue and heads straight to Margot's woodshed. Nick opens a gate and finds all the things listed on the bills. Welcome to Nick's paradise. There's a gift from Amy. July 5th, the morning Amy disappeared. It was she who orchestrated the crime. In Amy's eyes, Nick killed her by being lazy, lying to her, taking away her pride, her dignity, her hope, and her money. It's equal to murder and he will go to prison for it. She was well prepared to fake her death. She created money problems, bought a cheap getaway car with cash, and faked her pregnancy by befriending local idiot Noel. She staged a crime scene with flaws just enough to create doubt, and used her own blood to make it look like a homicide. Invented fake stories about their violent relationship, described in the diary, and left it for the cops. Finally, the anniversary's tradition was honored with a special treasure hunt. The truth is that she pretended to him to be the cool girl as long as he remained the man of her dreams. She couldn't stand that he expected her to love him unconditionally, especially when she knew about the affair with the new cool girl, Andy. She won't let him destroy her and end up happier than ever. As Nick opens up the gift, Margot reads the note Amy left for him. He realizes that Amy knew about his affair. The subtext of the note says that Nick will go to prison. He finally understands that Amy is framing him for her murder and what it's all about. Amy set him up so he couldn't have an alibi. She's good. July 6th, one day gone. Greta is glad to finally have a decent neighbor. Amy takes on a fake identity and relaxes at the pool. July 9th, Nick's on his way to see Tanner, the lawyer on the news who was defending him. Tanner is stunned by this whole mess, but he's all in and lets Nick know that he's the perfect guy for him. Tanner advises Nick to stop people seeing Amy as America's sweetheart and get help from someone she screwed over in the past. Nick and Amy's ex-boyfriend Tommy meet at the bar. Tommy tells him he pleaded to sexual assault to avoid going to jail, but he was innocent. Amy ruined his life as he no longer has a chance to get a job. Amy's enjoying the evening with Greta when Amy suddenly appears on the news. Greta doesn't like the real Amy, which makes her angry. Ellen spreads the rumor that the siblings have a twin cyst. Meanwhile, Amy is pleased that her play is performing so well. Ellen reveals on the news that Missouri has the death penalty. Amy reports strange activity near the woodshed on Margot's property. Nick meets Desi. Nick found Desi's address in one of his letters to Amy, but Desi refuses to help Nick. Rhonda is still going through the diary. James is convinced that Nick is guilty, but the detective is still giving Nick the benefit of the doubt. July 10th, 5 days have passed. The one question which bothers Tanner is what is hidden in Father's house. Unfortunately, they can't get inside and find it because the police have prohibited entry. Tanner is sure that what they found is very bad for Nick. He wonders what Andy's perception of the case is, so he suggests Nick tell the police about his affair before Andy can. Amy is in the Ozarks playing minigolf with Greta and her BF. She begins to doubt her suicide because she is not the bad guy. She makes a mistake by dropping her purse while scoring, which leads to her new buddies questioning her. Greta thought Amy was broke. July 11th, Amy's friends come to say goodbye. This was Greta's idea. She's not stupid and knows Amy won't call the police because she's lying about her identity, but she doesn't know that she's the gone girl from the news and doesn't even care. Amy's money is gone. July 12th, Tanner and Margot are preparing Nick for the interview with Sharon. He has to play the gentle, honest, good guy the public needs. Amy's at the casino where she happens to meet Desi. She starts manipulating him and tells him lies about Nick, the baby, and the reason for her disappearance. Desi believes her story and reveals to her that Nick has visited him. He still loves her and shares his joy that she saved his letters. He offers to hide her at his lake house. Sharon comes to interview Nick, but gets bad news on the phone. Andy's speech is on the news. Amy isn't pleased with Andy and her appearance. Tanner insists that it's now too late for Nick's interview, but Nick asks to trust him and convinces him to proceed as planned. Sharon puts on a smile. Lights on, show's on. He is amazingly good. Late at night in Desi's lake house, he shows her around and tells her to make herself at home. Apparently the house hasn't made an impression on Amy. She just wants to watch the news. He continues his tour of the house, reminding Amy that he has a small wiener as he continues to brag. She can feel safe because there are cameras all around the house. July 13th. The morning is quiet, but it's interrupted by Desi's loud arrival. She lets him know that she must feel safe and it makes him glad. Sharon's show airs out. Amy seems moved by Nick's words, as do the others. He loves Amy. She loved what Nick said. He's out of the woods. Immediately after the show, Rhonda and her team pay Margot a visit to take a look inside the woodshed due to Amy's phone call. Rhonda seems disappointed with what they find. She regrets giving Nick the benefit of the doubt. Desi is impatient about his future with Amy and wants her badly. She asks for more time in a manipulative way. He will move in with her and they will sort it out together. Amy doesn't like it. Meanwhile, Nick is angry at the police. Luckily, Tanner's with him. Tanner knows they can't arrest Nick without a body found. Only a confession can put him behind bars. Rhonda starts by showing him Amy's gift, the creepy puppets and the fake diary. Tanner starts to sweat because Nick has a big mouth. Finally, Rhonda is convinced she has enough evidence to arrest Nick. There's nothing Tanner can do for him. July 26th, 21 days have passed. Amy and Desi are living together. Still in her nightgown, Amy plays her role perfectly. She pours him coffee, brings him his forgotten keys, and even, instead of saying goodbye, kisses him so gently that his lips begin to bleed. After he leaves, Amy stages another scene. By this time, Tanner has managed to get Nick out of jail. August 3rd. Amy's plan with Desi is the same as the one with Tommy. She leaves marks on her wrists with rope to make it look like she was tied up and forced on. When Desi gets home, she seduces him. While making out with him, she slits his throat with a knife. August 4th. Nick is awakened by the return of Amy. Still covered in blood, she arrives at his house and makes the perfect victim. At the hospital, the doctors examine Amy and find that she has been assaulted. Rhonda wants Nick's opinion, because now it's clear that he definitely didn't murder his wife. On painkillers, Amy tells the agents from the FBI her BS story. Desi, her former stalker, had kidnapped her and held her hostage by tying her up and punishing her every night for the months she was missing. Rhonda suspects Amy of lying. By over-dramatizing her story, she appeals to the agents that they must find the tapes that prove her innocence. James is still not on Nick's side, although he understands that Amy couldn't possibly have slit Desi's throat while she was tied up the whole time. Rhonda asks Amy about her diary. Amy dodges the question by pretending to fade away. Amy now charges that Rhonda's incompetence almost cost Nick the death penalty and that she would have been tied up until that moment. She manipulates people really well and one of the agents praises her bravery. Now she smiles like an idiot. For Nick, it only caused problems. He's smarter now. The couple returns home. Amy's a star. People love her. The show is over. Nick is desperate to know what really happened. He doesn't trust Amy anymore. To make sure Nick isn't wired, Amy asks him to take off his clothes. They talk in the shower. In Nick's eyes, she's a murderer, but Amy keeps trying to convince him that she was just trying to fight her way back to him. She went back because Nick begged her. Nick wants to leave. Amy threatens him that he'll lose his reputation and she will destroy him if he decides to leave. Before he goes to sleep, he finds out that there was never a baby. Nick locks his door because now he's afraid. August 9th. 5 days home. With the help of Margot, Rhonda, and Tanner, he plans to take Amy to jail. Tanner jokes that they should do a reality show. Amy's back on TV and Tanner is impressed with how well she can lie. In his eyes, he's no longer at risk. Rhonda can't do anything for him either, because the feds have closed the case. September 9th, 5 weeks home. Nick is having trouble sleeping at night. He still locks himself in and the journalists are still camping out at his house. Amy frightens Nick. September 23rd, Nick rehearses his speech to confess the truth about Amy's lies. Amy calls for breakfast and they go over another speech they prepared together. She tells him to lie about the credit cards and that he pushed her. That's what she needs to feel safe. Ellen appears at their home waiting for Amy. He speaks in a manner that he hates her. She got him a present. While Ellen is downstairs, Amy gives Nick a positive pregnancy test, which makes him nervous because he hasn't touched her. She tells him that the child will hate Nick on his own and she won't need to teach him. He angrily pushes her against the wall. She's the cunt he married and she's the girl who will make him happy. During the interview, Nick lets Ellen know that they are going to be parents. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this.